Lou? Sorry about that. My computer randomly shut down, which is great. I don't think it's necessarily even shutting down. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Sometimes it randomly falls asleep, which is not great. And then I can't wake it up. I think it actually might be a graphics card issue thing. Yeah, great. Love it. That's it's the way of my life. Even when I'm trying to avoid technical difficulties, I run into technical difficulties. So, if you see me like jittering around my mouse like this is to try and keep my computer from doing something that it would regret. Uh, so yeah, whatever. Back to it. Can't can't do much about it. So, just gonna keep on going. Radio. Anyways, dummy. So, we're making a corset. Sort of. There's actually people who make arguments that if a corset has absolutely no type of waist training involved, it's not properly steel boned or boned in general, or like etc. 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 It's not a corset. It's a fashion device. Some people make the argument that this is entirely stupid, and if in reality, if you have a belt-ish thing with boning, it's a corset. Don't. Making these distinctions is pretty meaningless. I'm of the opinion that these distinctions are fairly meaningless, and it's a corset. What else am I going to call it? I guess you could call it a bustier, but whatever. Corset is a corset. Okay. So, I have a picture of Minoto up on my screen. You cannot see it because it is only on my screen. And, yeah, I just kind of gonna guesstimate from here. On the positive side, I consider myself a fairly good guesstimator. On the negative side, this is all just kind of theoretical work. Okay. So a fairly common thing to do for these types of thing is to use thin tape to mark out your seam lines. I, myself, do not own thin tape. So, I am using big tape and just cutting it to smaller pieces. Okay. So she's got kind of this, like, half circle thing right here, roughly. And then it kind of graduates down into an actual just plain line. Like so. I don't have images on her back, but I don't think it matters because she has like a sash on top of it. So, don't think I actually have to worry too much about the back seam lines. And actually, that's something that I'm kind of struggling to think about myself too, because there are no actual seam lines on this. This is supposed to be like a pseudo obi-esque situation, except it doesn't look like an obi. It looks more like one piece of something. So I'm just gonna work from the framework of it being a corset and go from there. So from here, just gonna extend out the lines all the way, making sure it is parallel to the ground, because otherwise, if it's not, we're gonna have a slight curvature, the actual paper pattern, and that's not great. Normally, when I do corset stuff, I use newsprint, reuse, reduce, recycle, all that jazz. Also, it's free. I don't have to pay for it. Also, it's kind of flimsy. It's easy to manipulate. So that's fun too. And, yeah. The only problem is, since it has actual print on it, your lines can get kind of screwy. It's pretty easy to screw up your lines like that, but, you know, once again, you kind of are paying for the fact that it's free. Alright. So, you can see that I have the general outline of the curve here. Since the corset is from metric, I don't have to worry about drafting the other side. I'm just going to fly with the assumption that both sides are correct. Sometimes, though, what I do is, on the opposite side, I mark out a pattern. When I'm not super sure about my pattern, I mark out a different type of pattern. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the duct tape model. It's kind of hard to do it when you're an independent person working by yourself. It works, and it definitely works in a lot of certain contexts as well. It's just not my favorite thing to do. It's just someone who tries to work mostly by themselves. I find it more difficult to wrap yourself. Also, if I did that on stream, I would potentially get into some drama. Because there are certain levels of clothing allowed in this platform, and I believe they want you to at least be wearing some sort of top, I believe, most likely. And you do a lot of the duct tape work with only a bra on. So, yeah, might get into a little bit of trouble with that one. This course, the working off a dummy like this, though, does actually give you pretty good things, especially if you're not making something skin tight, though, like, you know, a flowy dress, or if you want to do it in a single layer, you want to add darts like here and here, or, you know, I've seen some interesting darts where you do like darts from here. I should do this facing people. Darts from like here to here, and darts from here to here. You can do all sorts of interesting dart manipulation. I'm not skilled at it, but I've definitely seen people who've done it. But yeah, I mean, even for this, I feel that felt a lot worse than it actually was. Even for this, I'm wearing a tank top because when it comes to the actual, once I've cut the paper pattern, check the paper, I still check the paper pattern on myself, like not super hardcore, obviously, paper will rip. Even for that, I'm wearing a tank top to do all that type of stuff for that. And it's not going to be an exact 100% fit, but this corset is actually being worn on top of a, like, t-shirt thing anyways, so it'll get me close enough. I just have to, you know, keep everything PG 13. Think that's the minimum age for the Twitch peoples. PG 13. I have no idea. Really, I should keep track of that type of thing, but I always just go by the court of public opinion. This would be normally okay to wear outside, so I'm going by that. Gotta make sure these line up. Keep them parallel. Oh boy, that's a thigh workout. More than the other things. It's a good thing that I spend my time doing squats in my free time. And that's an actual truth. I do a lot of squats. Used to do a lot more, and then with the combination of work, school, shoots, school, work, have not had the same amount of time to work out that I normally do. Which is disappointing. I feel myself slowly getting worse and more out of shape, but unless I get free time unless somehow I invent a time machine that gives me more free time, it's kind of how it goes. So, God, I know that some people do workout streams on this, but that seems very weird and outside my comfort zone. Also, because I don't have a gym set up here, I just mess around in my living room and call it good for exercise. Alright, so, the other problem about this corset thing is that there's no obvious seam lines. Well, it's got this kind of diamond-esque pattern shaping on it, like V feathered shaping on it. And theoretically, you could probably have a seam line for every single one of those and be cool. But, for the sake of this, I'm probably going to do a corset layer in some type of heavy-duty fabric, like duck canvas. So do that in duck canvas on the bottom, and then have a foam layer that's going to be the fashion layer, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Corset terms, fabric terms, it's the fashion layer. Armor terms, it's the layer on top. I don't know. Is there a fun foam word for that one? And then just kind of go from there. But if I'm doing it per every single feather thing, that's going to be annoying just because for my other pattern I was doing about a feather every 1 inch. And that, my friend, would be my waist is roughly 24 inches, so that would be about like 24 seam lines. Yeah. So I'm just going to use my best judgment and hope for that. I hope my best judgment is not absolutely awful. But it could be. Every time I've done a corset in the past, I've used a pattern because, as I said, then again, most of my corsets in the past have a degree of what's the term? Tight lacing or waist reduction. There we go, waist reduction. And I would actually prefer not to have any waist reduction in this. It's just a lot more comfortable when you don't have any. So I should probably make this into one solid panel, because there's a design on the front. And the thing is that for this, it's probably best to have the foam mimic the underlayers of my design, so that way it helps out with the curvature. Actually, you can heat form foam so that it curves a little bit more, so I might be able to get away with fewer panels. But also, I'm worried if I go away with fewer panels that this might not work at all. If I do it with this type of mechanism, I know for a fact it will work on foam as well as fabric. So, oh man, did I think that was parallel? Oof. Hello, welcome to Madness. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know how many people actually draft stuff on stream. It seems like probably not many, because drafting is the part where you generally swear a lot. And I believe it's against TOS to swear, but I've definitely sworn a lot. So, we'll see what happens. Oh, God. Alright. I really just cannot get the line correct here. Not that it matters, because no one's gonna see it. But I know it. And mentally, deep down inside my heart, I'll feel it. I made a stupid-ass mistake, and it's there to haunt me for the rest of time. And that's the best kind of mistake, right? So, if I do this panel line another 2 inches, that's going to put me there. And I'm not a feeling... I want this piece to be approximately equal on both sides of this side seam. I don't actually swear that much, I would say. Depends on how much you find on swearing a lot. I used to have to work with a lot of, basically elementary school children. And as a result, you get in the habit of regulating your curse words. But I also found that meant as soon as I wasn't working with small children, all the swear words would come out. And I would just start cursing incessantly. And, got into a bit of a reputation for swearing a lot amongst my friends. So, I guess it kind of depends on what you're doing. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Okay. So we'll have 5 panels on the front-ish. 1 covering the side seam here. I don't know why. Oh, okay. I'm doing this because the corset pattern maker that I follow always has an actual fabric piece covering this side piece here, probably because it's under a lot of tension and you don't want to... Hello. Welcome to... Wow. Jennifer Lopez is here. Please tell her to send me $500,000. I guess through PayPal. Venmo also works too. I could finally use that to buy a house, or all that type of stuff. Yeah, I used to work with kids quite a bit. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good with kids, to be honest. I'm just used to working with kids. Honestly, really not my preferred thing to do. There's nothing wrong with little kids, it's just that sometimes... Well, actually, I like kids above a certain age. I like the kids above the age of, 4 or 5, because Past that, you can actually like talk to them and reason with them and tell them, please stop throwing the Play-Doh at your neighbor kid. It's getting into their hair and I have to clean it up. You know, that type of thing. Under the age of that, reasoning with kids is kind of hard. So, yeah. But anyways, yes, if Jennifer Lopez is here, please make sure she Venmos me like $500,000. I'd really appreciate it. It wouldn't hurt that, you know. Actually, any celebrity out there, please feel free to Venmo me large sums of money. I would definitely appreciate it, and I would use it for the good of me. Not humanity, just me. They can. It depends on the kids, honestly. Yeah. But yeah, you know, I do need my Hong Bao money. You know, red envelope money. Please give me Hong Bao money. I'm a unmarried person, and depending on different Chinese families have different traditions. For some of them, it's only kids that get money, or people younger than you per se. For my family, it's unmarried people. Exactly. Listen, who needs money more than millennials in California? Listen, I would like to buy a house. Not even a house, a condo within my lifespan. And at this rate, buying a house in California involves you sacrificing a goat and uttering some black magic incantations every so often. It's all fine. But I would appreciate some Hong Bao money this year. My family hasn't done the entire Chinese New Year's get-together thing for reasonable reasons. COVID, it's kind of a pandemic still happening. Still loads of people, you know. Uh, yeah. Still loads of people getting sick and whatever. So I haven't gotten my Hong Bao money in 2 years. And I appreciate it. I need to spend it on useless things like video games. Oh, and also it helps like starve away demons from eating me or something like that. But you know, all good stuff. Alright. So this is probably the pattern. I feel like I put too many of these in. So I'm just gonna cut it. So actually, yes and no. Yes, Lunar New Year's is tomorrow. But actually, a lot of the big family event stuff actually happens today on New Year's Eve, and clearly, one, it's not very amendable to meet up right now due to the circumstances of our times, and yeah, two, everyone has work. What are you gonna say, right? And now you may be asking, what type of paper do I use for this? And the answer is old sections of my math textbook. Lydia, I didn't need linear algebra anyways, right? Except this is not transparent, which is kind of a problem. Maybe I should have thought about this. Who would have thunk? That's okay. Because hidden behind here, I have tissue paper, which I can also use to mark and pattern draft. It's just that I almost never keep my actual patterns on tissue paper because it rips so easily, and I do like trying to keep my patterns over time, just in case I need to fix something or reference something, and I can just, you know, see it there, you know? Oh my god. After this, I am going to have the thighs of a God. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but you know, I'll be able to actually like bench press an amount that's slightly impressive instead of the bench press an amount that's not really impressive at all. It's okay. I used to do horse dance contests when I was a kid, and I used to win. So, radio. Time to start. You know, once I was at Anime Expo and some kid took my photo and then was like, oh yeah. And then he was kind of awkward about it. And he was like, oh yeah, can you take a photo with this sign? And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And then he pulled out his sign saying thick thighs save lives. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, this got mildly more awkward. Thanks, kid. I'll take your picture, but now I'm also I don't really have that thick of thighs. But anyways, you know, it's all cool. Kid was probably I think kid was like 15 or something like that. So you know, it's like not creepy or anything. It's just I know I used to do dumb things when I was a teenager at conventions. So like I understand the general vibe, but yeah, that was a little weird, I guess. Thank you! Those were all made by me. I'm glad you appreciated them. Honestly, about like 2 hours before a stream, I was like, hang on, I should make things look cool. And I was like, what should I do to set myself out from other people? And I was like, Poliwags everywhere. Yeah. This one is actually not the one that took the most amount of time. I know that there's nothing going to be showing on screen, but I'll show it off because this one is the what took an hour to make, and you know, some great art. Well, hey, honestly, I feel like conventions are some of the funnest things you can do as a teenager because you have absolutely no adult supervision. At least I didn't have any adult supervision. On the other hand, maybe if you're a teenager, that's maybe not the best thing to do to spend your time. But, I have great memories on this, but on the other hand, thinking back, there were so many places that could have gone horrifyingly wrong. Yeah. God. You know, everyone has their con horror stories. My con horror story is once I was dressed as a Hitalia character, so you can tell this was way back when. And dressed as China, because like this was like my first cosplay I ever made. I had long hair, I had green military shorts, not shorts, pants, and like military style jacket, and you know, it's just nice and simple. And then some guy picked me up and started trying to walk away with me when I was browsing Artist Alley. And needless to say, I had friends, and they were pretty upset. So nothing happened. I got set loose and everything, but now thinking back, that could have ended potentially badly. Maybe. Guy's thing was like, oh, I was just trying to have you come over to my friend and you couldn't hear and blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, you know, you didn't actually have to pick me up to like get me to come over to your friend. You could have just tapped me on the shoulder and I would have waved hi. But you know, it's all cool, right? It's all cool. So, oh my god, my legs are shaking. It's not even the 30-minute. Oh no, it's the 30-minute mark. Yes, I'm not completely out of shape. But so yeah, that's my con horror story, if that counts as a con horror story. I guess it does. That's very much against the cosplay is not consent type thing. I guess some people don't also consider that like pseudo attempted kidnapping, but you know, I'm alive. It's always kind of funny too. I feel like my worst con experiences have been when I was cross-dressing as a dude, and I've not had that as many nearly bad experiences like dressed as like a lady. So I don't know if that's probably not true for other people. To be fair, there's been some questionable interactions. I was dressed as a lady too, but you know. Also, as a teenager, when I was doing most of my cosplays, almost exclusively did crossplay. Because my mom did not want me dressing up as anime girls because she thought they wore too skimpy clothes and weird dudes would do weird things. In hindsight, she's probably 100% accurate. So, can't blame mom for that one. But yeah, by the time I started actually like dressing in more femme cosplays, con culture has changed significantly. There's a lot more emphasis put on like not harassing cosplayers and so on. But should also label these things before you get too far into this, otherwise I'll have no freaking clue how to piece everything together. Okay, I'm gonna call this part 0, and then one's gonna go this way, and one's gonna go this way. Cool. Honestly, I think letting your kids go to cons is fine. It's just, maybe keep track of them, maybe slightly more than when I was a teenager. That's probably a good thing, right? Why did I not get a stool for this? Oh, I'm gonna regret this tomorrow. It's okay. I regret a lot of things. Be my exercise for like the entire week. Oh. Oh. Sorry for that, for your friend there. This is me trying to draft a corset. I have no idea if it's gonna go well or not, but, you live to try, right? The fact is that even though having worse seem like the lines like this is going to make my life far more irritating, and hopefully by the time whenever I actually start seaming this together, it also means that I can adjust it so it fits better. Having more seam lines does that. Having fewer seam lines means less adjustable. Yeah, you definitely get that vibe. I've definitely, like, the other, like, not horror story, the other story I like to tell is that once I was dressed as Bayo, you know, I was trying to eat lunch. I couldn't sit as Bayo because of the heels, but, you know, so I was just leaning against the wall, eating a sandwich, doing what humans do when they're tired and can't sit down. And some kid was like, "Can I take your photo?" I was like, "Nah, kid, I'm eating a sandwich." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he just stood there while I ate my sandwich in silence. And I was like, okay, well, this feels awkward. I don't appreciate it. And even then, when you wear like big armor builds or like that, people just kind of take your photo and keep on going, and it's fine when you're posing, but when you're just trying to walk around, getting to a place so that you can sit or relax or whatever, or you have half of your armor off to show that you're like not in the mood to do anything, and people are still trying to take your photo, it's like, come on. Please, let a human take a nap, sleep, do whatever is needed. So yeah. But oh god. So for this, actually, most people I know would do this in a type of fabric called muslin. Muslin is actually a very specific type of fabric, but here in America, it's just been translated as the fabric that you do test work in. The fact that I'm doing tissue paper on this is mostly because while I do have muslin, it's actually kind of inconvenient to use muslin as a corset fabric base, because corset fabric is supposed to be very heavy duty, and muslin for the most part is not very heavy duty. And so you should generally draft your stuff, make practice garments in fabrics that are similar to your own type of end fabric that you're going to use. And a good substitute for heavy-duty fabric, if you don't have it, is paper. I'm not actually going to be using these as my actual template, like tester things. I'm going to trace it down onto a real piece of paper, cut those out, and then see how it works. Just kind of tape them together and then form it on me. And if it works, cool. If it doesn't, we go back to the drawing board. So that's very much kind of how it goes for a lot of fabric making. To a degree, that's kind of why I prefer. I feel like foam drafting is so much faster than fabric drafting, because foam, most of the time you're not actually like fitting it onto your leg. There's a lot of gap room. You have to have a little bit of gap to move around and flex and everything. And that way, it kind of makes it a little bit more forgiving. And then for fabric, it's expected to be like onto your skin. And that makes it a lot less forgiving. That means you actually kind of have to know what you're doing. And me, whenever I do something form-fitting like this, I'm not gonna lie, I just go to a basic body block that I've made a couple years ago and rely on that exclusively. So that is part 2 out of 3. I am slightly well, we'll see how it works out. As I said, this is try and draft a corset, not succeed in drafting a corset. But then again, as I said, there's actually no waist reduction in this pattern since I'm basing it on a dummy that's mostly me. Neck's a bit too wide. This needs to be squished. But the parts that I'm using for are accurate, so that should be fine. Now onto my next sheet of paper. But yeah. Also, if you're ever interested in sewing, may I recommend that you not sew a corset as your first thing to do. Most people, most things that they recommend that you do are like pillows, skirts. It's a little, I guess. I mean, for a dude, I guess if you're a dude, you just wear the skirt. It's fine. Who cares, right? Just call it a kilt. Actually, a kilt's a very specific type of clothing, so maybe not call it a kilt, but embrace it. Gender non-conforming clothing or something. I don't know. Does it really matter that much? There are actually corset companies who make corsets for dudes, so that dudes can reduce their waist as well. But I'm not gonna lie, I've only seen the only people I've seen who wear them do it in well, for one thing, generally part of the LGBT community, and two, sometimes are wearing it for more fetishy reasons. Corsets actually work best if you have a bit of flub in your area, in your belly area, because fat's squishy and you can squish it down. Actually, that's why, for one thing, that's actually why I don't generally make super duper waist tightening corsets. I have not too much squish around my middle area, so there's only so much I can do. Yeah, but so they do sell corsets for men. It's a guaranteed market, and despite me saying it's mostly for the more fetishy side, there are dudes who wear it as more of a historical type thing. Back in history, I believe there were basically cinchers, waist cinchers for men, which are basically corsets for men, but they don't call them corsets because dudes don't like having their clothes be called corsets. I don't know. My knowledge on fashion history is very much self-taught and very much kind of haphazard. You learn some of fashion history by just the generic kind of way in which fashion history is kind of shoved upon you in the sewing world, because almost all seam lines have their starts in history, but I'm not formally trained in anything. Okay, I'm formally trained in chemistry, but that doesn't help me with this. You can always start in by hand sewing something. Hand sewing is, while a slower process, much less scary. Kind of meditative, actually. So, could always do that instead. And, make something fun for yourself. God. I really should think about that. What would be a fun project for a dude that's not a skirt, that is simple to do, and is not a pillow, because I frankly hate sampler pillows, or whatever you want to call it. The pillows that you make when you're learning to begin how to sew, because they're always just these generic square things that you throw on your couch and then don't have any other purpose. But it's kind of difficult because there's no generic blocky thing that dudes tend to wear. I guess you could say a t-shirt. Most t-shirts are just kind of squares nowadays. But then you have to start working with knit fabrics, and working with knit fabrics or stretch fabrics in general can be kind of a nightmare, especially for a beginner. So, an interesting little thing to think about. But, hey, knitting's fun too. Obviously, I also know how to knit. Well, actually, not obviously. I also know how to knit. Also know how to crochet. Basically, I've done almost every single handicraft underneath the sun. I have troubles focusing on one particular discipline of anything. So, maybe that's why I'm doing my master's in comp sci instead of chemistry. Well, actually, that's just mostly because the wages are in comp sci are significantly better. Oh, let's be real. We pay chemists nothing. At least here in America. So that's always a fun little fact. Yeah, you're not wrong. That'll be the super macho thing to do, wouldn't it? Make a tote for your beer. Oh god, that's how I'll start sewing. You know how they make like bows and arrows for like girls or something? Because otherwise, women wouldn't ever think about using a weapon for death unless it was pink and frilly. That's what I'll do. I'll make a sewing machine for men. It'll come with tactical spikes, and the needle will be extra thick because it's extra strong for dealing with tough seams. Yeah, macho. I'm clearly the marketing mind of a genius here. Oh, that's right. It also has to be in camo print. I don't know why. Macho, military, camo, very manly. Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, my brother knows how to run a sewing machine. But then again, he's also not very macho. So I don't think that would necessarily prove the point to anyone. But oh yeah, right. And instead, you that's the thing. You can also it has two spindles, one for your beer can and one for your thread, and it only takes 20 super ply thread for that thick canvas that you're sewing. Speaking of that, I do actually have Teflon thread. Not Teflon. Yes, Teflon. Wait, no, not Teflon. Kevlar. Oh, I have no idea why I keep on getting those confused. They're not really all that chemically similar at all. But I do actually have Kevlar thread that I don't know. Maybe one day I'll use for something important. I actually tried to. I tried actually crafting with it, and I did some crocheted threads. Oh, hello. Welcome to. Thanks for the raid, my friend. Welcome to insanity. Maybe I should start marketing myself slightly better. Oh well. Oh god. I am not feeling the seam lines coming from these pieces of paper. It's okay. It's you live and you learn, right? It's also just tissue paper I bought from a dollar store, so like if I lose this, it's going to be an investment of $1. But oh wow, that is a lot of people watching me struggle with a pair of scissors, just kind of in front of a webcam with a. I really ought to. I've said this before. I used to have a head on her, except when you're sewing late at night and you have the window, like the shades up, so you can see the window reflections. Oh, I scared the crap out of myself once because I looked at the window, and outside the window, you saw this pale white face just staring back at you. I was like, "Holy shit!" And then I was like, "Oh wait, oh god, it's just my dummy. I'm not dead yet." You know, fun ways to scare your it's fun ways to scare people if they ever come over without any announcement or anything. One, two, three, four, five. So I have 6 and 7. Okay. But yeah. So used to have a head. Actually, my mom at home has a dummy with arms on it, except they're not like normal human arms. They're like extendy arms. Like if a normal human arm is my length, like my arm length, it's got like an extra foot of arm. And also, they're not boned, like elbow boned. They're just got a flexible wiring in them, so you can make them do all sorts of crazy spaghetti-ass things. And every time I go back home, I see that dummy when I'm walking around the house, you know, without the lights on, and I scare the shit out of myself as I walk onto like Slender Man dummy. Every single time. It's great. I need to give this dummy arms. Add to the scare potential. Honestly, for when I was when I was working at home, I used to do things in my craft room. This is not my craft room. This is my bedroom. My craft room is currently too much of a disaster to ever expose the public face to ever. And yeah, I used to. So that back then, the stummy still had a head, and every business meeting, I would switch out the hat on top of it to see if anyone noticed. No one said a thing. I was so disappointed. I gotta try that again and start, I don't know, stacking hats on top or like start like randomly changing the clothes on this thing or something. How else am I going to amuse myself in these hour-long meetings that I say absolutely nothing in? And honestly, for a lot of these meetings, I barely even work on the project they're discussing, so it's just a pile of wasted time. For the most part. Boss, please don't ever listen to these things. I might get in trouble. Maybe not. Who knows? I mean, to be honest, I've missed my fair share of these meetings because they cancel them all the time, and sometimes the alarm for the meeting doesn't go off on my computer, and no one said anything about me missing it. It's just like, oh, she's too busy doing other things, so yeah, it doesn't really matter. Let's just keep going. Oh, God. I wish my work was slightly more useful. But anyways, welcome new people. If you have any questions about sewing or anything, I will attempt to answer them at best ability, but I can't promise any type of anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue ranting about everything and anything under the sun. But, speaking of things about ranting, I was thinking about the sewing machines for men. Not like any way, shape related, or anything at all. But man, I do wish I had a working serger. Because that would make sewing stretchy fabric so much more of a breeze than sewing it with my trusty old sewing machine. Which is great. It's very old, so it's durable. But it's not anything fancy. I can definitely tell you that. So definitely does not like sewing stretch fabrics much, although I did have it sew through the pleather and the 2mm EVA foam without too much of a hassle, so that's always nice. Thanks for the follow, Space Warfare Development. If you ever develop laser beams that fire from space, please don't shoot them to my house. I wouldn't be sad. My landlord would be sad. But I like my landlord because he doesn't raise my rent. So, please don't shoot my house that I live in. I would be sad. But. That's very crooked. I'll accept it. It's perfectly fine, my friend. I am very used to babbling to myself constantly while I work. It's the only way I know how to live. I mean, maybe not this rental property, but my last landlords, go ahead and blow that thing to smithereens. Oh god, I didn't hate the place. It worked out lovely until the plumbing decided to push out shit every other week. That was a problem. Listen, if you ever heard of this small, not very small town at this point, Irvine's kind of like the biggest city, like soon to become the biggest city in Orange County. If you ever heard of this place called Orange County, the rents are ridiculous. All sorts of other things. But yeah, the only way to get cheap rent in Irvine is to rent from apartment complexes that are probably 10 years behind on maintenance. And that can be a problem, which is why I moved. Also, I moved because they refused to fix my internet. But, problems. I think that works as a generic problem. Also, thank you, Faye Paints, for the follow. I appreciate it immensely. But, yeah, never recommend those were the days, I guess. It's kind of a shame. It was actually at a really good location at Irvine. Like, that place, that particular corner at Irvine is the hip and trendy part of Irvine nowadays, which is funny because it used to be the place where they put all the businesses so that they wouldn't annoy the residents, but beside the point. It was really close to an Asian grocery store, like within walking distance, so I used to walk over to get my groceries all the time. Was close to a bunch of really good food and everything. It's just, those issues, man. You can't sell an apartment, you can't rent an apartment these days without internet, so, I moved. And I vowed to never go into, to rent from that particular rental company ever again. Because that was bad. Alright. This should be the last piece! Hooray! Now to see if this actually works. Oh! Yes! If it was a Velcana and it was at ALA, then that was probably 100% me. If it was on Odogaron, there was like three of those. Three of those. So that one could have been confused. But yes, that was me. Thank you for seeing my cosplay, and I hope you like it. I spent goodness only knows how much time on that cosplay. It was a lot. So Irvine's actually a city where Google promised to install Google Fiber into, even after Google Fiber failed for all sorts of various reasons that are mostly Google's fault, but that's beside the point. But since Irvine signed a contract with them, Google is attending to fulfill their contract to installing Google Fiber everywhere in Irvine, but not my crappy-ass building. Oh no, that got to suffer the glories of Cox Internet. And, the name itself almost inspires the type of service that they give you. That's a not so subtle way of saying the company is run by a bunch of dicks. But yeah. Oh no, it was great. Oh, it was great. Every time I called them about how my internet didn't work, they told me to talk to my apartment people. I talked to my apartment people. They told me to talk to Cox. I talked to Cox, and they told me that for the great opportunity of talking to them, they're going to charge me an extra $15 on my internet bill that month. And I was like, I'm not even giving frickin' internet. How is this legal? And yeah. Managed to get almost all the charges reversed after numerous phone calls, many of them, and yeah. Also, refused to get internet from Cox for the rest of my life because that was 4 months of bullshit. See? Listen. Every single time I talk about Cox, everyone just pops up and says, yeah, that is one of the worst freaking companies to ever exist. How in the hell do the only reason they stay in business is because they're sometimes the only internet in the area. If it were anyone else, they would just be completely out of business. But I don't know. I guess whatever. The day that Irvine actually starts having a competitor aside from Cox is the day I'll actually think about maybe moving back to Irvine. But until then, I'll stay happily outside of the Cox sphere. Oh man, that could sound very bad out of context, but it's fine. Even in context, I don't make much sense and I say all sorts of even in context, sometimes what I say doesn't make the most amount of sense, or so on. But, yeah, the worst thing about this for me, actually, is that I was chatting to my boss about my horrific internet problems, and, like, my company was actually talking to Cox about this, because I'm one of the major, what do you want to call it? I'm one of the major components of a project that was supposed to be released, and during the time frame I didn't have internet. So my company actually called Cox and said, hey, for the love of God, could you actually fix her internet? We kinda need her. Still no issue. Still no response. I called Cox and they talked and got all the way to the head of the customer service person, and even he was like, "Oh yeah, it's you. Your your company called us about it and said, hey, you need to restore this girl's internet, otherwise there might be issues." And even then, internet did not get fixed. So, oh boy. Not a fan. I wish to say I was actually important in my company, but realistically, I'm just the person who has stayed there the longest, so I have the most technical know-how. So if I was not there, they might have problems. But, I think now they have loads of technically competent people, I think. So I'm just a disposable cog in the machine again. Oh, how terrible. But, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of things that our Irvine benefits from. Good schools, safe environment. The food's alright. But if you rent an apartment for them, you either rent from awful companies who don't fix your stuff, or you rent from the Irvine company, which is an awful company that I think fixes your stuff, but also probably charges you for, like, existing and breathing in their fine air. Oh, right. Since I'm cutting stuff, I need to assume the position. I can hold this for 30 minutes and then I'll, like, pass out on the ground. It's fine. You don't need me, right? My substitute here can say everything that she needs to be said. But, yeah, now that I'm moving on to the part of this thing, which doesn't require awkwardly hunching over a dummy and trying to cut a line straight on this piece of paper, which does not like being cut straight. At least, on, at least in regards of, like, I mean, the paper can cut straight fine, but it's kind of hard to cut straight on a curved line like this, so I think my seam lines that resulted from this is going to be questionable. But we can fix them. At least I hope I can fix them. I have no idea, actually, if I'm going to use this pattern again in the future, but I might just keep it for funsies, as a memory of when I drafted this. And then 3 years down the line, when I'm cleaning out my craft room, I'll see a bunch of pieces of paper and say, what the hell is this? And trash it immediately. But it's the thought that counts. Oh yeah, that seam is crooked. Oh, that is so crooked. I am going to adjust it on the fly right here. Because at no point of the time should your seam have a little bulge and like that. That's a sign that something has gone horrifyingly wrong. But anywho, I think I'm supposed to do this social engagement thing. So, how do I engage with humans? If you have a hobby, what is the biggest argument that happens in that hobby? Like, in knitting, there are 2 styles of knitting. There's actually more styles of knitting than 2 styles, but there's 2 of them that people argue about. You have knitting continental, or you have knitting British. And it's a matter of debate because with British knitting, you do most of the work with your right hand, and then for continental, you do most of your work with the left hand. So yeah, it's some raging controversy, let me just say. You have actually, you do actually have a number of complaints about it, because knitting patterns that work for one way do not necessarily work for the other way. You have to flip some of this stuff. Also, my piece of paper disappeared. Shoot. I dropped it. It's okay. I still have it here. Let's just keep on going. I'll live on the floor until I find it and throw it out. But yes, it's a raging controversy in the knitting world. Honestly, despite people's assumption that knitting's filled with a bunch of old ladies who just sit around and are kindly and motherly to each other and bake cookies on the side, there has been a lot of drama in the knitting community about all sorts of things. This gets into politics a little bit, but Ravelry basically banned Trump supporters from their website. That was a big drama. The after effects have still been felt today. They made a Ravelry website which has not taken off at all. If it's still alive, I would be surprised. I'm pretty sure it's just gone. No one went to it. Oh yeah, no, and there's controversy about it's called what's it called? Knit bombing, something like that. It's where you go around and you basically knit scarves for trees, and then you put the knitted scarves around the trees. It supposedly helps decorate the neighborhood or whatever. But people hate it because as the knitting decays, it can create rubbish all over the place. And yeah, so there's been some controversies about that too. Oh yeah, no, the knitting community is filled with all sorts of crazy intrigue and heated discussions about things that only knitters would care about, for the most part. Great fun. But, yes, see, that's my piece of engagement. I guess if you don't have any raging controversies happening in your hobby, I don't actually know that many knitting drama things, mostly because I don't go to knitting clubs for the most part. Just kind of sit around and knit by myself. Actually, that's something that I'm supposed to do, which I haven't done. I do occasionally make my own knitting patterns. Occasionally. Rarely. Once in a blue moon. A blue moon happens once a year, so yeah, once a year. That's about accurate. And, I haven't done that. Because making knitting patterns scares me. Because that means you actually have to be accurate in what you say, and, not make any goof ups in the pattern. Otherwise, you have people harassing you about the mistakes you made in a pattern that you made like 5 years ago, and that continues for the rest, on and on and on and on. But yeah, that's there we go. That's some knitting drama. Ravelry actually has more than just knitting on it. It also has crochet people on it too, which is different. The knitters and the crocheters insist that they are actually very different disciplines, but most people don't know the difference. I really should have put a top and bottom on this too. Oops. Okay. Okay, this is the top. That's the top. Okay. And from there, we can figure out the top from here. I've made that significantly curvier, which I don't think is actually how it's going to look well in reality, but that's just kind of the result of me smoothing out the lines a bit. And with the smoothed out lines, that hopefully means I'll have a better pattern after this. Or maybe not. That goes in the recycling bin that I have on the side. Alright. But yeah, no, this is the boring part of everything, because I'm just gonna be tracing out pieces of paper and then hoping it works. So if you have any questions about anything, as I said, I can only give you the answers that I know of, and they may not be true. Well, they'll be true to me. They may not be accurate. But oh god, there are so many weird seam lines in this. I'll just correct it that way and hope for the best. But I don't know. Is watching crafting streams the way that you thought you'd spend your time? I don't know. As I said, I got into this mostly because I I saw some other people doing it, and crafting with friends is infinitely better than crafting with no friends. But from what I understand, it's really like the people who watch crafting streams are mostly people who watch, like, only crafters watch crafting streams. So it's kind of it's a fun little community, but it's kind of slightly on the more insular side of things. Not like it's bad. It's just it's what it is. So, man, I wore this tank top and everything for wearing the pseudo corset, and I I'll get to the paper one at least by in the 2-hour mark. Not so sure about like the canvas one. So fun fact, or not so fun fact, I am using canvas, like furniture canvas, for the strength layer of this corset. Most of the time, you're supposed to use this cotton fabric called coutil, which is generally specialty made in France out of 100% pure cotton, and has also cost you an arm and a leg. So, needless to say, as someone who doesn't have that much money, I use furniture canvas, which is great because it's generally actually also what you make mock-up of corsets out of. So if my mock-up goes extraordinarily well, I don't make it my mock-up anymore. I just make it my actual corset, and spare myself that pain of having to do things again. But then again, I know some actual corset people who use furniture canvas like that. So, I mean, it's not necessarily against the rules or not community approved or anything like that. It's just generally the best fabric is coutil, and realistically, very few people can afford to do that for every single corset that they make. That being said, a corset is only maybe like a yard of fabric, so it's not the worst amount of expense in the world. $30 for a piece of clothing. Well, that's only the strength layer. You also have a fashion layer, which tends to be made out of nice, pretty fabrics, and that in itself can cost a pretty penny. So overall, it could... Also, the boning costs a non-trivial amount of money. I've spent, like... Probably, I have plastic boning, which is relatively cheap. It's what I generally bone things in, because once, it's cheap. I just double it up to make it a bit stronger. But I also have some steel boning, which I haven't used yet, which I should get to using. And that's $20 per thing. And also you have the busk, the center busk. Each busk is like $10 to $15. So overall, all the expenses added up can be more like $50 or $60 or $70, and not necessarily... It's not necessarily the cheapest hobby to get into, but you can also... You can cheap out on some of the things. It's just... You don't end up with the most nice or most professional product at the end. But you don't need to be professional, right? We're all hobbyists here. At least I'm a hobbyist. And at no point in time did I ever say I was an expert on anything, so... It's good. Wait, flip. There we go. But I do actually intend on making a real, quote-unquote, corset at some point of my time. Sewing. But I'm also kind of afraid to cut into, because I got some nice fancy-ass fabric for that. I got some actual silk, 100% silk Duchess satin for that, and that I got for a fairly cheap price. I have no idea, honestly. Um, Honestly, this just started out as a stupid stream idea that I wasn't gonna take too seriously, and then as I made portions of it, I started to get more and more into it, and now I'm actually finishing it. Uh, it's actually how I am with a lot of cosplay. I have a lot of cosplay ideas that I just kind of have floating around that I work piecemeal on, but I don't have a set cosplay in mind, right? Until I worked it, like after I work a few pieces on it, sometimes the idea grabs me and I'm like, yes, this is definitely what I want to finish next. This is what it's going to be. And other stuff, until that happens, like I just kind of have piecemeal pieces of the cosplayer hanging around. And then once I'm finished with another project, I go back to that one, work a few more pieces, see if it grabs me. And if it does, I finish it. If it doesn't, I can work on something else, see if that grabs me, etc., etc., etc. It's pretty terrible, actually, organization-wise, because that means I just have a bunch of random cosplay stuff wandering around. And people are like, hey, what's that idea that you were going to do that you showed all this progress pics on? And then it just disappeared. And I was like, oh, I have all the fabric and pieces for that. I'm just not feeling it. I'll get to it, eventually, I swear. Sometimes it takes 2 years, but I'll get to it. So for this, there was no set convention for this. I might bring it to Fanime, which is in May, just because it's Fanime. I have to drive up there, and this should be a relatively easy cosplay to transport. But I also just might make it for a shoot. I have a lot of friends who cosplay Monster Hunter, so I thought maybe it'll be fun to just do a shoot with them, and or it just exists in my closet as a source of fun. So yeah, no specific plans. But if I was gonna shoot this, there's actually a number of fairly nice Japanese gardens around in this area, which would be nice to shoot at, considering the styling of Monster Hunter Rise. But you also have to pay money for that, and I actually do kind of. I support giving money to these places, and I understand that they have to charge money for these places, otherwise they will have 10 bajillion Instagram people coming in and spending hours upon hours shooting their cosplay there and getting in the way of other people. But also the fees can tend to be about $100 per hour, and that starts adding up for a shoot. Because if you're also paying your photographer, which I do if the photographer asks for money, that can add up to quite a bit of money. And also, this is a hobby thing. I do not make money from my cosplay. Realistically, yeah, I just don't really make much money from it, so I try to keep my budgeting for that, reasonable. So, in general, that's the thing. I have to make the decision whether or not I want to pay for a shoot, or do I want to work on another cosplay? And the answer is almost always work on another cosplay. I do shoots if a photographer asks, oh, hey, I really like that cosplay, or if it's a costume I put a lot of work in, or I think it has a correct vibe, or it's a photographer I want to work for a while, etc., etc., etc. But I say that I don't do that many shoots, but honestly, I do a lot of shoots. I've done one every weekend for the past 3 weeks, and I honestly want to take a break because I want to have free time to sew. Sewing makes me happy, and I can't sew when I'm constantly out taking photos for things. But take a weekend to sew, think about life, and we'll see from there, I guess. Don't have actually any. There's a couple projects I want to get nice photos of, but I've made those projects 2 or 3 years ago, so there's no particularly strong need to get photos of them, I guess. It's just something I would like to do. I mean, at this point, these are cosplays that I made pre-pandemic. Funny enough, for 2020, I was like, yes, this will be the year they take photos of all the things I made. Yes, it will be great. People will finally see what I've done with all my free time. Of course, the pandemic happened. None of that happened. So, you know, it's a nice thought. That's those are real sad times there. Especially since I don't know. There are some cosplays that you do that are super duper popular and that people recognize you and everything, and then you try and find photos. I myself generally don't remember to take photos of my cosplay or anything like that. I just kind of let it happen which is why I was trying. That was my 2020 goal. Remember to ask people to take photos of this stuff so I can talk about it later. But so there are some cosplays that people recognize, and you get a lot of photos from random people about it, and you feel good about yourself, and then you go on the internet and you can't find any pictures of you, and then you're sad because you spent time on that and you kind of wanted to see photos of it. Oh well, that's Church. She's not a particularly great armor build, but I did her in. Oh boy, how much time did I? That was an armor build. I think I did it a week and a half or 2 weeks at most. That was very of a rushed thing, and it all came together. It stayed together at the con. Nothing like exploded. So for that, I was pretty pleased at it. But yeah, basically, there's almost no photos of it online. I have photos from 2 people. And I have posted them multiple times because I'm like, please, recognize this. I do like Fire Emblem. I know it's rare. I cosplay Fire Emblem. I've cosplayed Fire Emblem 3 times, but no one takes photos of them, so no one knows. And I'm not really the type to. Well, occasionally I blog about what video games I'm playing and whatever, but I'm not generally the type to constantly talk about it. Just not really my style. But I don't know. One of my friends who's doing Monster Hunter is doing a build from. Is thinking about doing a build from Fire Emblem. So specifically 3 houses, which is the big Fire Emblem thing of the current time. Used to be Awakening. Used to sort of be Fates, but also not really Fates, because every single person I talk to about Fire Emblem Fates seems to like some of the characters, but kind of hate the actual game, and I'm in the boat where I hate both the characters and the actual game, so, not my thing. But I do like Fire Emblem 3 houses, so might try and do a build with him. We will see. It'll be an entire pseudo-villains build, because he's doing the. I think they call it the Death Knight in the game, not the Black Knight. Black Knight's something else. And in that case, I will be doing Edelgard. Because they're on the same side. Because Edelgard is morally questionable. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. Mostly because if I do that, I get to carry around a giant axe and a shield. And there's nothing makes me happier than carrying around a shield. Just like to craft them. I don't know, it's just Also, like, when you carry around two weapons, it makes posing easier in my case, in my opinion, because you don't have to worry about what you do with your other hand. You're carrying a shield. Makes everything just so much more convenient. I don't have to think about it. I'm just like, I pose with shield. That is my purpose. But it also makes traveling to conventions kind of tricky because shields are not the easiest cosplay part to figure out how to make into multiple parts for the purpose of assembly and disassembly. But I'm thinking about it. It's probably the next build I'm probably gonna do after this is a Kasara from Tales of Arise, because I finally got the foam for that. It took a couple weeks to come over. But now that I have the materials for that, I'm much more looking forward to building her. Because this has also, like, that's the other thing. Once I start making something, I just want to keep on making. It's kind of a self-perpetual engine of crafting. So, now that I'm kind of in the business of making something, I'm like, ooh, yeah, great. Once I finish this, I have all this energy to do something again. And then once you start getting into something again, then you're like, oh, well, maybe I should have taken a break to take a nap in between. Naps are good. Also, there's still stuff that I need to make for people for Christmas. And I should really do that, because otherwise those people might get slowly started getting upset with me. So that's probably what I'm immediately going to do after this, which is fine. Should be pretty easy. I'm just making like fleece pajamas, basically. And that should be pretty easy. Fleece is an easy material to work with. Doesn't really fray that much, so I don't have to worry too much about finishing my seams. I will try and be a professional seamstress and do some level of seam finishing, but if I don't get along to it, I mean, I don't have to like do a super hardcore like perfectionist job at it, unlike satin especially unlike satin, and especially silk satin, which fray if you stare at it too long. Because having worked with those, I don't wish it upon my worst enemy. But I see historical costumers do it all the time, and I like those people, so maybe I'll wish it upon them. For they seem to like it, or at least deal with it. Alright, I think... Yes. This is the last piece of the paper corset pattern. After this, we finally reach something that I can attempt to at least troubleshoot. Not even wear. Troubleshoot. And this was also why I like buying pre-made fabric. I mean, yeah, sometimes I buy them. There's actually a lot of free patterns too that I just alter to match what I want. But in any case, this is why I generally work off patterns. It saves me so much time. And really, the bragging rights of drafting your own pattern are only sometimes worth it. Many times it's just kind of like, oh, well, I did draft that myself, you can tell. It doesn't have all the seams aligned properly. And last couple cuts. I'm actually, as I said, whatever. I'm worried that the seam lines on this are going to be skewed. Because definitely my scissors were going offline for a lot of these. Also, I think, as I said, in the process of trying to fix on the lines, I think I added too much seam I added too much fabric on the top of that. There's a more technical way of saying that, but who needs technical terms? Technical terms are the words of people who know what they're doing and trying to sound smart, and I never said I was smart. But there's actually even more to draft after this, but this is the hard bit to draft. This is the part that actually has to, like, function as a garment and be form-fitting. Beyond this, there's a couple scales on the bottom, but, you know, those just have to be proportional to the corset and me. You don't actually have to, like, put work into that. That's just kind of like, oh, this fits. And if that fits, this fits, that means that these should be of this proportion. And we're good to go. Well, on the positive side, you see how the paper is curving out like this? This means even without seaming or any boning, it's already starting to assume shape, which is something that you need in a corseted garment. If it doesn't have any shape, that means you screwed up horrific. Well, it doesn't mean that you screwed up horrifically, it just means you won't have a very well-fitted corset. It means that, that means most of your shaping is coming from boning, and when that happens, I mean, it works. It just means that the shaping that the boning is going to try and put you in is very rectangular, and that might be very uncomfortable depending on what type of body shape you have. Did I forget to put numbers on some of these? Oh no. That's a problem. Okay. We'll figure it out once we get to those problem ones. For now, I think, at the very least, I have labeled the ones that I need immediately. Or at least I numbered most of them so I can deduce it out of logic. So these are the 6s, 3s, 4. Oh boy, if you ever look at the inside of my armor, the part where people can't see, it's just covered in little notations like this, because this is how I keep track of all my pieces. If I don't do this, I don't know what I'm doing. So, 7. And we have the 5s here. Okay. So we got 0, 1. These are a matching set. And these are a matching set. Okay. So, I believe these are the ones I had to pretty severely correct. But this is matching the outline of 2. So we found it. 2. This is number 2. Okay, all is safe in the world. My handwriting could be better, and marking which one's top and which one's bottom, but that's beside the point. God, I feel like this is not very interesting, but it's actually what I do. So, you know, accuracy in the process. There's no magic wand where I wave and it pops out an actual pattern. Okay, so there's a little too much paper in this, so it's not lying flat. That actually might be okay. That should actually probably be okay in the fabric, You can have a little bit more ease in fabric than you can in paper. It's paper. But it also means that I might want to go back and redraw some of these seam lines to get it to lie a little bit more flat and a little bit more in line with the body. Because there seems to be about, I would say, if I was trying to line it up perfectly, like this, right, so if I try and line out the paper perfectly, there's about less than a quarter of an inch, maybe about 1/6 of an inch above where it should be. And you actually can deal with that level of ease in fabric, so I'm not too concerned about it, but in this pieces of paper, it's not gonna like it. It's feeling very much like I'm trying to force it to do something which is not, it was not designed to do. Okay. And then these go together. Because I believe these are pieces 3, which I didn't mark because I was smart. And there we go. This has a little bit of hip flare. Very nice. Always appreciate a bit of hip flare. Hip flare can also make it look like you're more not diamond shaped. Actually, diamond shape's the opposite shape. More hourglass shaped than you actually are. Which is nice because society demands that all femme-presenting people be shaped like diamonds. And this is not true for a lot of femme-presenting people. So, you do some magic to make it look like that. And this is all part of the magic. But that does also mean that the hip flare is a little bit more than my actual hips. Which is fine. Honestly, I kind of prefer, as I said, it's also kind of a nice thing. That means the mobility of everything is, somewhat higher than it would be if it wasn't that type of hip flare. Okay, now we're on pieces 3, 4, got 5 over here, 6 and 7. Okay. Let's try and do a little bit of a faster job with the taping, because it's reaching my 15-minute mark. I don't have a timer for that. I've been just watching the time myself, and while I can go over the time limit that I set arbitrarily for myself, I prefer not to because I actually have... This homework's not graded, so I guess it's not the worst thing in the world if I don't get to it, but I would actually like to be a good student this semester and not completely blow off all my not needed, but sort of actually needed homework assignments. You know, cosplay a good student for once. I heard it's the fanciest thing in town. I don't think I don't think there was ever a time I was actually an excellent student. My teacher in high school probably swear I was an excellent student, but that's because they didn't see me actually, because they assumed I was just this quiet person who did nothing. And what I was actually doing was sitting in the back doing the homework for the next class in the previous class. So, and I had 7 periods worth of class, so in period 1, I'd be doing period 2 homework, period 2, I'd be doing period 3 homework, so on and so forth. I would just keep on doing that. And no one knew the wiser except my physics teacher, because she also was doing my calculus homework. And she actually knew calculus because that's something you do in physics. But she didn't care. She was like, oh, great. Doing some fine calculus, I see. And I was like, yeah, doing some calculus. And she's like, great, well, keep at it. She didn't care. I also had an A in the class, so, probably why she didn't care, but, oh boy. Well, did I, yeah, it's great. It's how everyone does homework, right? I don't know. How I managed, sometimes I wonder how I got accepted into the college I into. Because not like, I had the worst GPA or the worst test scores or whatever, but I did feel like I kind of lowered the GPA of the college I went to by, like, the smallest point. Because it wasn't like I was failing any of my classes, but, I feel like a lot of the people at the school I went to had straight A's or something like that, and I was more on the straight B territory of things. With A's in sciences. Actually, no, it wasn't like that. I had A's in my sciences and my math classes, and I had C's in English and humanity and history. Well, I had a B in history, but it was pretty close to a C. So, but hey, I was applying for a science program, so maybe they just assumed I was just a classic, scientist who did not care at all about the humanities, and that was not necessarily true. I appreciate the English language and its ability to write stories, but I do not appreciate my English teachers' grading skills or policies. They didn't like me either, so it was a fair trade. Okay. My desk is a mess, and it's starting to make me slightly irritated because I can't figure out where I put things, and that's making me sad. It's okay. We're almost at the end. And I can finally say I put on this tank top for a reason, for the purposes of fitting something, and I would really like to actually have done something that had purpose and meaning instead of just waffling around with no knowledge of what I'm doing. Hello! Welcome to my attempts of drafting something. I am taping out my paper patterns right now. And, not doing the bestest job in the world, but we're getting somewhere. Thanks for coming along. Yeah. I'm doing it, which is what matters, right? Yeah. Okay. There are so many weird seams in this, but some of these are supposed to be curved, so they're not going to be the best represented in paper. That's what I keep telling myself, so I just have to believe in myself. I mean, they do actually pretty well aligned in some places, so... Okay. Okay. I mean... does actually seem to have the correct type of curvature. So... just 2 more to go, and then we'll see. The parts, 6 is the last actual important curve bit. The 7th part is mostly there. It's mostly there to just straighten out all the, to be the straight piece in all of this, so that you have something to put the lacing through. Yeah, I know that Monster Hunter Rise is a very Japanese-esque game. I don't think they had lace corsets in the game, but you can't see it, and it's the most convenient way to make a corset that fits people. So, we'll take it. My piece of paper. So it works. I mean, I could do a zipper for the back too, but I'm also worried that since this is being basically, as I said, this is actually technically speaking an obi, not a corset, except it looks pretty freaking like a corset to me, because stylization, video games, etc., etc. So I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Point is, it's the not most historically accurate thing in the world, so it doesn't matter if it's not historically accurate. It's a fantasy video game, and I can make the rules to a degree. Also, you can't see it, so if I'm wrong, you can't see it, and you can't tell me I'm wrong. There we go. That's the point of where I was going with this. Alright. Okay, I think I might just trim that, but I'll do that after I'll try it on to see if this is the 6 is accurate or the 7 is accurate. When I say try it on, okay, whatever. I think I might have put in some of these pieces backwards. But if that was the case, it would actually not fit at all, I believe. Well, if I did put some of these pieces in backwards, I guess I'll learn about it very soon. 'Cause with this crappy tape job, we're going to be at the final piece of the puzzle. Ta-da! The puzzle. Alright. Let's take the tissue paper off of this. We're gonna test it first on here, because if it doesn't fit and it explodes, at least I can cry about it on the dummy instead of crying about it while it's on me. And I know that doesn't sound like it's the biggest thing in the world, but I would be much more sadder if it explodes on me. Because that means maybe I did something, I don't know. Here, at least I can pretend the dummy doesn't work or something. If it explodes on me, that means I don't work, I guess. I don't know. Okay. First things first. Somehow, this has got so much additional paper on it. And I'm not sure how. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Because that means all the seams are not quite aligned, but it seems like I can probably just cut it at 4 and get a decent enough working pattern off of that, so I'll do it that way. I'm just pinning it in place so that it doesn't explode off. Yep, I'll just take it off, remove the tape from here. There's a little bit of curvature to that, but nothing that I can't fix later. If this also... Okay, it's... Yeah. This dummy is actually a little bit tilted, which is great. Makes everything slightly less accurate. Makes my life slightly harder. But it's also, this pattern's ending at 4, which means I've somehow added an additional 6 inches of length into my paper pattern. Ouch. And you saw me, I drafted it on the frickin' dummy. And even then, it doesn't even matter. But, ta-da! Mostly works. The only thing here is that there's a little bit of gappage here that I can fix pretty easily. And in terms of just being a basic corset, actually, there's a little bit of easing here. If I actually full out squish the paper together, it works. So the last final step is taking out the pins on this, taking off this thing, and I'm not going to like try this on because we want to stay safe for the Twitch audience, but mostly works on me too. I mean, I can't see really well, but yeah, there we go. Corset drafted. Woo! And yeah, we made it exactly within the 2-hour mark that I generally set up my streams to be. So that's pretty impressive. I'll take that. I will think to myself, how in the hell did I manage to add an extra 6 inches of paper? But the parts that I did make worked. So, yeah. Next time around, we might actually have a full corset. Or we might not, it depends. I actually kind of want to do that on stream, just to show off the quilting that I'm doing, probably for this, to do all the scale pattern work and everything. But I'm gonna do the boring drafty stuff, hopefully off stream. Not that it's boring. It is pretty boring, though. But, it also is probably going to be mostly done on, like, a piece of paper on my desk. And that's a little bit hard of a thing to set up on this desk. It would be nice if I had 2 cameras, but I don't. But, with that, I'm probably going to call it for the night. So, thank you so much for watching, the people who have watched for all this time. Thank you to anyone who followed. I also appreciate it immensely. And I hope you have a good night. And see ya. Yeah, I appreciate you coming too. Thanks. And also, if you celebrate the Lunar New Year, Happy Lunar New Year, Xinyan Kuaila. I'm half Chinese. I guess that's important. I don't know. Enjoy the New Year too. Alright. Bye, everyone.